Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Freddy Molotla, and this is my English 200 Teach the Class presentation. For this particular assignment, we were instructed to provide our own personal discovery on what this course provided us. Personally, I'm not someone that excels very well in English. However, I found this class's structure and consistent outline to help me very well to reach my goals in this particular course. And I found that the in-class discussions and viewing different perspectives and opinions on the particular subject for that week was very insightful, as well as it just overall provided different perspectives and different views on how I'd view things as well. And we were also given literary blogs in which we discussed short stories that were given as well. And overall, we were given two main books to talk about, and they were The Talented Mr. Ripley and A Raisin in the Sun. And both of these books really embodied most of the literary movements that were given as well. And to start off, what is literature? According to Britannica, it is a body of written works. Its development has also greatly impacted society, as it's molded civilizations, political systems, and overall helped further divulge information. Although through its development there have been various strides, it can also prove to be detrimental as well, given that there are also negative literary books and short stories that are negative as well. And literature overall serves as the catalyst for expressions of the authors. In many of the literary movements that were introduced, and through the short stories, we were able to see the differing viewpoints of the authors given their depiction of the stories. Some of them even essentially mirror society and try to shed light or insight towards understanding the world we live in. And I chose to focus on three main literary movements that we talked about throughout this course and kind of focused on, and they are realism, naturalism, and regionalism. Realism. Its definition is a period of literature that developed around 1850 and lasted throughout 1914. Its development was reaction against Romanticism and Civil War horrors. And what I mean by Civil War horrors is that it sought to unmask overall reality, provide actual factual events of how things were played out, and instead of creating a false image of reality, it attempted to portray life as ordinary and truthful as possible. And overall, its central idea was focused on ethics, doing what is morally correct. And it also focused on individuals rather than the plot. And its tone was comic, and its attitude overall was mostly positive as well. Information derived from this was from a YouTube video provided on our notes, and notes provided as well on week 1 and week 2, and some examples that I found through the literary books that we were given throughout the semester, or short stories, was, for example, The Story of an Hour. Mrs. Mallard is described to be the typical married woman in this time. She's someone that embodies a ordinary and possibly even typical woman of that time, in which women are oppressed. And she went through this whole little inside journey towards finding happiness and later being robbed of it, towards the end of her realization that her husband had not passed away, as she thought. And this story mostly focused on her particular character, again, instead of the plot, and overall provided insight of how oppressed she felt as her role within her marriage. Another example was A Raisin in the Sun, the particular act that we're reading. It depicts an African American family struggling to make it or excel in society. Each character presents a unique hardship. Again, it's focusing more on each individual character and providing insight overall towards their own personal struggles. And I also really liked how this particular story shed light into discrimination and prejudice as well, because, for example, inside we see that the welcoming community even tried to buy out or persuade the family out of the community. And my next one, naturalism. This definition is based on the movement suggested from the roles of family, social conditions, and environment in shaping human character. Thus, naturalistic writers write stories based on the idea that environment determines and governs human character. Overall, it's a little bit more of a based on, as I was mentioning, overall based on seeing human life as determined more based on the environment in which the person is in. And individuals are also seen as without free will or trapped in predestined lives that they cannot change. We see this again through The Talented Mr. Ripley, where Tom grew up in a semi-toxic, I'd say toxic, environment with his aunt, from losing his both parents. And we even hear that the aunt called him a sissy and overall made him doubt himself a lot as a person, which eventually leads on to more serious things that he developed throughout the story, and ultimately leads to his own mental demise. We can all agree that he was a psychopath, and its development was a little bit more on naturalism's development was based on pessimism from the Civil War and Reconstruction, and thirdly is regionalism, in which its development was led on due to the Civil War and industrialization. And it was created in efforts to capture the local color or local traditions and norms before they essentially expired. Overall, it was meant to keep traditions alive. We see regionalism through A Raisin in the Sun as well, when the character Benitha remains true to her roots and she's proud of them as well, and she wants to keep them afloat within the family. However, there are various other characters that contradict and negatively try to impact her character. And overall, it depicts the mood of a society based on the region and culture as well. This course really provided insight towards the different literary movements within literature. There is an immense variation in them, and the short stories, discussions, and overall these two books provided great insight towards what literature essentially is, and truly helped provide me a better understanding as well. Information is derived from the notes that were given within our course, and thank you very much for your time.